Hello. If you're watching this video, it's probably for one of two reasons. Either A, you received an assignment that looks something like this, practice Canvas submission, or you're actually having problems submitting something to Canvas and you want to go through the proper steps so that you can prove that you did everything in your power to submit this properly. If you are watching it as part of the submission assignment, watch all the way through and then remember everything that you heard in this video so that you can come back to it if you experience future problems with submitting an assignment to Canvas. Now, if you're watching this because you're having problems, then you only need to watch it as far as you need to go to get it done. Now, a good thing to keep in mind is that you could have to go as far as reaching out to Canvas support to prove that there's a problem, but we'll talk more about that later on in this video. Another thing is, this happened with the student just last semester, it could be your network settings if you're trying to turn this in from your own personal computer. Now, if you can fix that by contacting your network provider, your internet provider, or maybe somebody set up really tight firewalls on your computer, maybe you can talk to them and they can loosen it up. But if not, then you may have to go to the library to submit your work for the class. Please remember that the deadline given for any assignment is not the recommended time to start turning in files. Rather, it is the very last date time to get them in on time. So thus you want to plan ahead to avoid late penalties, because if some little quirky delay happens 5 minutes prior to you turning it in, that's not a valid excuse for me to say, oh, okay, that's okay that you were late because you waited till the last minute. It just doesn't make sense. So very real life type situation. If a client asked you to turn something in and you waited till the last minute and you didn't turn it in and then you had problems at that last minute, it just makes you look bad to the client. And the latest version of Chrome is the recommended browser for using Canvas. All right, so let's get on with it. If you ever have trouble turning in a file or files to Canvas, please closely follow these instructions. Now, this won't cause you problems turning in the file, but you want to make sure that your file is named per the instructions on the home page. Make sure that you are turning in the correct file type. Often there may be restrictions set up in the file types that will be allowed. So if, for example, I'm looking for a JPEG and an AI file, and you try to turn in a PDF file, it's not going to let you, and it's kind of doing you a favor because you would have been turning in the wrong thing anyway. JPG is the correct extension, not JPEG. So just watch for what the software puts on there, and I'll show you an example of this in just a second. And watch out for double extensions. You never want to actually type period JPEG in this example, or period AI for an Illustrator file. Let the software put that on because this is not correct. It's confusing. It doesn't look like you know what you're doing in the software if you submit a file like this to a coworker. Let the software put the extension on. All right, so let's do that. Let's say that you're working in a software, doesn't matter what software, working on a project, doesn't matter what project, and now it's time to turn it in. And then in this example, let's say we wanted a JPEG. So we're going to go File, we're going to go Save As, we're going to name this per the name in the class. This is just an example here. We do not want to type anything after the period here. Now notice I said we want JPEG. It's on a different file type. No big deal. We go down to the bottom of this window in the software. And if you're not seeing a whole lot of information, this little caret's always a good idea to click and open it up a little bit. But in this time, we're just going to go down here. And notice it does say JPEG, but watch when I click on this, it changes the file extension to what we want, which is just JPG. But I did not type that. I did not touch in this area up here. I let the software do everything. And then you would save that, make sure you know where you're saving it, and then turn it in. Now, before you get around to submitting the files, you want to test them first. So That's why it's very smart to make a separate folder that's called Turn Into Steve, for example. And you put only the files that you're going to turn into Steve in that folder. You open them up one last time in the software, you check through them, you make sure they're correct. Now, only submit multiple files if that's what the assignment indicates to do so. If you just throw a whole bunch of files at me, you will be graded down or asked to resubmit, which will probably cause the work to be marked down anyway because it'll be then turned in late. So just really important to follow the instructions, turn in exactly what you're supposed to turn in. All right, and then when you're at an assignment that you're turning in, there'll most likely be a button up here. Sometimes it's down here, Canvas changes, but there'll be a button that pretty much lets you know that you're about to submit it. Now, you're either going to see a submission system that looks like this, or it may look more like this. This one I tend to use less because it's been known to have problems, but if you do see this, just know it's very, very similar. It should be pretty much intuitive. The idea is you're going to select your files. In this particular system, you have to select them one at a time. So you're going to click Choose File. You're going to navigate to the folder that you have them in. You're going to select the first one, click Open, then you're going to go add another file. Then you got to click Choose File, and then you're going to select, in this case, the second file. And then just look at these. Make sure everything is good here. Make sure you did indeed grab the correct files, not the same one twice, for example. And then you should be good. Now, it's important to have confidence in this step here because checking your files afterwards is not always that easy. So I'm going to click Submit, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Once you've submitted your files, you may be able to have an area, like for example over here, where it lets you download the files again. In this system, it seems to be working pretty good right now, but I have had students that will try to download their file. You don't need to, but they want to do it because they want to make sure they turn the right thing in, and it ends up creating a lot of extra work than just simply making sure you have the right file to turn in. Because what can happen is the program, when you download it, sometimes adds PDF to the end of here. So it'll be like the name.ai.pdf. Now, the good news is if you really want to go that far and test it, and it does add PDF, all you have to do is just simply get rid of the PDF from the name, and then you can use it and test the file. So if that ever happens to you, you just simply click in here and then remove PDF, because in this case that doesn't belong. Hit return. It's going to ask you, did you really mean to go back to AI? And you confirm that you did. And then if you open this up in Illustrator, it would work totally fine. Sometimes in Canvas, you'll see a preview of your file after you submit it. Don't worry if things look odd in there. Like for example, you may see your artboard, but if you had things next to your artboard, you probably won't see them because, and again, it uses PDF technology to make those previews. So get it right the first time. You won't have to worry about, psyching yourself out if you turned it in correctly. Also, do not worry if Canvas adds a number to your file name. I know I'm very specific that I want you to name your files last name _ first name _ description. But if after the description there's a 1 or a 2 after that, I don't care. Now, if your instructor should tell you that you did not submit the correct files, please do not only submit the missing files, but rather submit all of the files that are required. It's important for you to note that I only view and grade your very last submission. So all you ever have to do is if you make a mistake, just simply resubmit. And that is exactly what I'm going to look at in grade. Just maybe to make this a little clearer for you, this is what my view actually looks at when I'm looking at student work. So I see the 2 files you submitted. If there's previous submissions, I don't see them. In fact, I'll just pause this and add another submission here. So in this case, I made this test student submit another file. Now notice it added a 1 next to it, no big deal. But if this test student was trying to submit this assignment that required 2 files, now they just messed up because when I go in here to grade, I only have 1 file to grade, right? That's why it's very important to upload everything anytime you make a submission. The only indication up here that more stuff was turned in is there's this little drop down, but don't expect me or any other instructor to go rooting through this every time for hundreds of students. So that's why it's so important to do it the right way. But just so you can see, that was the first submission made, and that was the most recent one made. So there's only one instance where I look at multiple submissions, not multiple files, but multiple submissions, and that would be if there is a confirmed problem with Canvas, and that's the only way to turn things in. So now at this point, if you've tried all that and you still cannot submit your files, go up to the syllabus in our class, copy down my actual email address. And a lot of students forget that my email address is available to them because we always use this inbox for communicating. But if ever you need to give my email address to somebody else, which would be the case here, just go to syllabus, and then it should be up here near the top, and then just simply swipe your cursor across it to copy it. All right, and just to edit copy, we'll have that all ready for you. And then you can paste that in TextEdit or Pages or Word or whatever. And then you're going to reach out to Canvas support. And if it turns out there's an actual problem with Canvas, then ask them to reach out to me and explain that there is a problem. And it probably wouldn't hurt to remind you that you use this buoy right here to find all your different contacts. And for student, you're going to see definitely Canvas support as one of these. In fact, actually, I think there's this button right here that, oh yeah, that's the better one to go directly to Canvas. This one is more for almost every other way of needing help, but this one takes you to Canvas. Reach out, call them, whatever you need. They're open 24/7 or pretty darn close to it. And now, there's only been 2 times in the last many, many years that there has been a legitimate Canvas submission error. And one time the person from Canvas promptly emailed me and let me know that there was a problem, that it was not the student's fault. So of course that student was not marked late when they were able to submit the work. Another time, the Canvas person claimed to the student that they could not email an instructor, but the student did the smart thing, which is anytime you ask somebody for help and you need proof of that, just write the person's name down, who you're speaking with, and get the time of the conversation. And in that case, I was able to verify the situation. So in both cases, it was a legitimate error. But if it's not, then, of course, your work will be graded as late if it was just something that you forgot to do correctly. Now, if the person at Canvas tells you, yeah, there's a legitimate problem here with submitting, like, say, multiple files, for example, then go back into Canvas and submit them one at a time, multiple submissions, and then go to the comment section and tell me, say, Steve, this was the only way I could get this assignment done per so-and-so at Canvas support. Please look at this submission and the one right before it. And then, like I told you, I'll use that little drop down and I will look at both of them. The rest of this video will go over the practice assignment for Canvas. So it'll look something like this. Now, of course, this number and where exactly it's located may be different, but the key thing is that you want to read all this, and then you want to download these 2 files. Now, this is something that's important about downloading things from Canvas. It can be a little odd sometimes, and there's sometimes like 3-4 different ways that you can download the file. Sometimes it may just start downloading automatically. Sometimes if you click here, it'll download like it just did for me, but it looks like there's also a button here. Oh no, that's just recent download history, sorry. And also right-clicking on it may also allow you to save image as. But one of those for sure will get you the document, and what you should end up in your downloads folder once you download that is the JPEG. We'll say testing123.jpg, and then just use the back arrow to get to the page or go back through modules, whatever it takes. And then you want to download the AI file. And this is kind of odd. You can see the JPEG didn't have this, but the AI has a little download icon next to it. So like I said, sometimes 3-4 different ways that you can download, but you will definitely find a way. So if that didn't work for you, click here. It'll bring you into here, and then you can click this download button here. And then you are not, and I repeat, not opening up these files in any software program. You are just simply going to rename them and submit them. When we rename the files, or when you submit any file to me, you always name it with your last name underscore first name and a short description. And actually do a short description because sometimes students try to put initials next to it for the assignment. And if I'm looking through your files later on, I'll have no idea what you mean. So a good, like, this is not very descriptive, right? But if you said like testing file for this one, I'll remember that. And you may want to drag these files into a folder called Turn Into Steve, just so you make sure that after you do this, you know exactly where to go for them. Or in this case, since they're the only thing at the top of my downloads folder, I'm just going to leave them here. But we are going to put the name in for both of them. And an easy way to do this on a Mac is just click and then hit the return key. So click to select, hit the return key, and notice it only selects everything to the left of the period. And then I can go through, name them. I'm going to go fast here, so I may make some errors. And then we'll just call this testing. And then we'll do the same thing for this one, hit return. Now, if you're on a PC, you'll have to look up, but you know how to do this. But typically, right-clicking is what I remember I used to do on a PC, and then I would go to rename. And then that is about it, other than the step I showed you previously, which was actually how to submit these.